Welcome to the 2023 Austin Market Update. I am so excited to be here today, kicking it off with Mr. Mark Karetskiy. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Welcome to 2023. Holy crap.
I know we are here. It is crazy. We are right here, right now. And today we are kicking off a new format for the show, which I'm super excited about. We're going to let folks start asking more questions, which we seem to be getting, but just really have a nice flow to the show. So with that said, today what we're going to do is we are going to kick it off. We're going to talk about some top line numbers, what's going on, some median family income numbers for Travis County, which makes up the most relevant part here of Austin where I am. We're going to look at some weekly market stats. We're going to talk about what's happening in the news with BlackRock, the Fed, and what else is happening with a really cool seller discussion you and I were having earlier, as well as builders and renovations. So with that said, Mark, let's kick it off. You ready?
Yeah. What are we looking at in Austin for these numbers?
Well, first of all, I found an interesting number that I thought it was close, but anyways, the median family income for Travis County is $99,250,000, according to the Austin Housing and Planning Department.
That's median. So
Yep.
that means half of the population making more than that, half of it making below that. And so it doesn't surprise me, but like you said, it's Travis County is a big county. And so when you start to really break it down zip code by zip code, you're going to see a lot of variance between Travis County.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is cool, though, to see that we're just shy of that $100,000 mark for a median income.
Yeah.
Healthy.
And so it's healthy. And I think when you look at it nationwide, I think it's around 55,000 right now. That's the median. And so it's definitely significantly more. And God bless Texas, there's no state income tax.
There you go. And we are still considered like in the top 2 spots for places people want to live.
In the DFW and Frisco, we are fighting for that top spot. But Austin continues to be a attraction for everybody, both within Texas and outside of Texas. And then at the same time, a lot of those, we've talked about it in the past, right? The original gangsters of Austin, they're actually like, they're looking around and they're like, we can make a lot of money and we may be able to go somewhere that's a little bit more suburban, a little bit more rural. So we're seeing a little bit of everything.
Yeah, we really are. So let's take a look at what's gone on the last week of December, because we know real estate, we're always looking back a week and what's happening. And so right now we have 8,100 homes on the market in Austin. So we're off our high of 10,000 that we hit a couple months ago. We had 365 new listings come on market the last week of the year / as of today. Which is a really good sign. We continue to move properties under contract and pending for a total of 559 homes that went under contract like in the last week. Phenomenal. I mean, that's the last week. People think homes don't sell the last week of the year. I got news for you. If serious buyers are out, they are buying.
Oh, yeah.
And we've got a number of homes on hold. And we had a lot of homes that actually decided that they were going to take a decrease in the ask of their household prices, which is right in line with what's going on everywhere else in Austin. We've been so fortunate to see, speaking of top markets, we're in one of the top markets in the nation to have our home value increases. And now we are, getting a bit of a pinch as a result.
Yeah, I think we all are. I think we need to make some phone calls to our representatives because a little birdie told me that there's a surplus in the budgets. And so if you're a Texas resident, check it out, make some phone calls.
There you go. So I'm going to break it down a little bit further. So let's consider what's happening in the luxury market right now. And what we're seeing is we've got almost 1,100 homes for sale that are $1 million plus in Austin, Texas. And when I break that down a little bit further, Mark, there's 723 of them that are between 1 and 2 million. And then from 2 to 3 is 168, and 3 to 5 is 125. So when we look at it, a bulk of the homes that are for sale in Austin right now are like 1/8 of them are $1 million plus, which is pretty cool.
That's a lot of them, right? And I think that's probably a bigger percentage than it's been. I think it's also interesting, like as we go through this week to week, what was the peak? Was that October that you guys hit like the 10,000 units of inventory in and of itself? But we've seen not just in Austin, but in Dallas and all across the country, we have peaked in housing and inventory. And the question now is, are we nationally, are we even going to have 1 million units of inventory? And so I think we're seeing what we've talked about, which is there isn't this supply avalanche coming or tsunami as a lot of people predicted, and inventory continues to be really tight.
Absolutely. I mean, when we started last year, we were at about 1,400 homes for sale, and this year we're starting out the year with 8,100 homes for sale. Thank goodness. And we're still, less than 4 months of inventory, so it is still considered a seller's market, even though we've seen a softening of what those sellers have been able to do. And in order to come together, we've had buyers and sellers very much working together because we've gone past that pandemic time where now when we look at it, people actually have time to go look at a house, compare it to other houses, and negotiations are actually, instead of taking maybe a couple of hours, which still does happen, we can now see negotiations take place over days, which is such a joy to be back in that space because we have not seen that in years.
You're right. I mean, would sellers like to see the competitiveness that they potentially missed out on in 2021 and early 2022? Yeah, probably. But that was completely unsustainable. So you're right. As the professionals in the situation, we realize these decisions that our buyers and sellers are making, they are massive decisions. And so it's really not a good and healthy thing for humans in general to be making really drastic decisions in a moment of hours. And I think it should take some going back and forth. And I feel like that's what the real estate industry used to be, right? We have gotten so much inflated demand because of what we had with the Fed holding rates down and doing the quantitative easing. Right now, it feels like it's the opposite of that pendulum that we always talk about. And we're seeing really a concentration of really hampering down demand. And so you're right. But at the same time, I think there's a lot of buyers that are sitting around that are really succumbing to the noise that they're seeing and hearing. And they're not actually taking advantage of a lot of the opportunities that are right in front of them in their backyard.
Yeah. And so the theme of our weekly show this week is everything old is new again. And, it is tongue in cheek because we are back to a time where our historic mortgage rates are, what is our 10-year average? Like 6.75 or something over the last 10 years. And
I
then
haven't looked at it in a while, but it's in the sixes.
it's in the sixes. So we're in the sixes. We've got sellers and buyers working together to come to agreements. And we've got a lot of agents, quite frankly, that have never been through this type of turn in the market, that do not have the negotiation skills, that have not understood and do not understand what is required now to get, a buyer into a house and a seller out of their house. And so it really is a time of creativity and really understanding negotiations and what we can bring to the table as professionals. Because right now we have buyers, or we have sellers that are considering whether or not they want to buy, considering or not whether they want to sell. And so what is the true motivation right now for somebody to add to the inventory in Austin, Texas, so that somebody can then turn around and buy a new home? They need motivation right now.
Right. And there is a lack of motivation and there's a lot of fear mongering, both like incorrectly, but then also forewarnings and like precautionary tales of you need to be prepared and have a safety net at any time, but especially in a time where we all think we are headed towards a recession if we're not in one now. And so I think, to your point, if you don't have a need, is real estate for you in 2023? Perhaps not. Do you still need to stay like in the loop and understand what's going on in your local market and what the dynamics are playing out to be? Absolutely. Because whenever you need to move, you need to have the right information so you can make that right choice at that right time.
Absolutely. I mean, real estate is hyper local. You've got your city, you've got your zip code, you've got your neighborhood, and you've got your street. And you want to really find out what's going on any given street and the surrounding areas. And so, what I'm doing right now with my sellers is I'm looking at the value of their home as it is in their neighborhood, knowing what we know. And then I'm also looking outside of that because we have so many people that are moving to Austin, Texas. I think, well, if I had, a certain budget, where would I buy? And the consideration obviously is location, 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 education, and then what else they need to consider in terms of lifestyle. And so when I look at that, especially for luxury buyers, what 1 million to 2 million gets you, or just above 2 million to 3 million, where do people want to be? And those A school districts are so important. And so what it does is it increases the consideration for sellers of, like, this is what your house might be worth in your neighborhood. However, we also need to consider what other people are looking at in these other A school districts, because your house right now needs to be competitive, where that didn't matter so much 6 months ago.
It still mattered. It just didn't matter as much, right? Like, we saw the properties that were listed correctly, a lot of them are still getting multiple offers right now. Like, that's what's the reality of the situation is. And so that list price and that list presentation is more important now more than ever. But to your point, negotiations and just communication, that's really what a lot of agents, that's what a lot of lenders, that's what a lot of us just really stopped caring about during COVID, because there was a lot of factors to it, but communication goes a lot further than we give credit to. And so the agents that are communicating, especially buyer with that seller agent, that's where you're able to get a negotiation going. That's where you're able to get to a point where you can come to terms.
Yes. And as someone who lists properties and negotiates on behalf of their sellers, and I'm also a buyer agent and negotiate on behalf of my buyers, I am consistently looking at both parts of the equation and wearing that hat so that strategically I can advise my clients depending on which side of the fence that they're on. And I can tell you what we're seeing in Austin, Texas right now is that buyers are coming in, and they are coming in with an offer based on, hey, no ask, no get. And what that means is some people as sellers may think, I just got what they call a lowball offer. No, Mr. Seller and Mrs. Seller, what you got was an offer. And what does it really mean to you in terms of the negotiation and where we need to net out for you? Because as a buyer, you're going to turn around and we're going to do the same thing. So never take it as an insult to the value of your home. Take it as a starting point for negotiations so that you can get out of your house and into your next chapter, and that other person can get into their current chapter.
To your point, it's funny how it's opposite. I always talk to my buyers. I'm like, whatever house you're buying, you need to think about it as the seller. Whenever we're talking about buyers that are needing to sell before they buy, you've got to think about it as the buyer, right? Mm-hmm. And so at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what we believe. And we all believe that our home is worth more than what it's actually worth. That's the reality of the situation. And so the reality of that situation is it doesn't matter what you think the market value of your home is. The market value is determined by the buyers actually making offers. And so right now, there's a lot of forces keeping buyers from putting out offers. And so all of these viewings that aren't converting to offers, that's where the listing agents, if they're having the right conversations, if they're starting to really negotiate themselves, that's where you're seeing a lot more activity.
Well, I can tell you as a listing agent, every person that comes through the home that has an agent that they work with, I am following up with that agent. If they are somebody who is working for themselves because they have some sort of background and history of buying homes for themselves, I have their name and number. I am calling and following up. If someone says, hey, I'm waiting till such and such a date and time, I have that in my calendar. I am following up. I am also looking at where my sellers want to move. So I completely understand the inventory on the other side, because if my sellers home is worth more or that price has come down, I also have to be aware of where they're going on the other side because the net matters. And the biggest thing I can do on behalf of my clients is be in communication with these buyers. And if you think I was in communication with them when we had our crazy bidding wars, I'm doubly in communication with people now because I need to understand the motivation to get buyers to buy and ensure that they realize that the property is still for sale. It's the whole game has changed.
It totally has. And you have the best luck to get the most bang for your buck when you list just under market value. You get that attention. At the end of the day, I think it's around 6 weeks of actually being live. That's where the demand peaks. And so you really want to get a good offer in those first 6 weeks. We all got comfortable over these last couple of years where we kept seeing and hearing and actually experiencing that you list a house and it's for sale and it's sold. And so it is no longer that. And so there's so much more strategy that homeowners need to undertake to make sure that they get the most bang for their buck when they go to sell.
Yeah, and then again gets back to knowing what when I look at a specific neighborhood and days on market and what has sold that is equivalent to what my sellers are listed at and what else the quote unquote competition is, meaning if I'm going out and I'm buying a house for $2 million or $1 million or $500,000, what else is for sale in that area because I need to know what the competition is doing for my sellers so that I ensure that we are priced correctly in the market. Because the last thing I want to do is have them come look at my seller's house and have my seller's house sell the one down the street, that is substantially less because someone doesn't care about renovations or they do care about renovations, but they've already, done the math. So it's more important now than ever to truly, as a listing agent, understand the value of the property. And I'm talking to the day of what's going on in any given neighborhood. It is a full court press. Easy for me to say. Full court press on constantly being there because I am always playing offense and I'm consistently playing defense so that my sellers are in the best possible position. And then when they turn into buyers, I'm making sure that they are in the best possible position on the flip side.
I always joke you can pay me 9% to be a realtor, but the joke is serious. Like I am so much happier over here on my mortgage side because y'all got to do and deal with a lot more than what most consumers understand and what most newly licensed agents understand. But you just gave us a great breakdown of it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So with that said, we were talking offline about what does it mean right now for someone to sell their home and be able to work with a 2-1 buy down because we know that there's a maximum in the 700s of is it 759,000?
So every year, the Federal Housing Finance Agency, the ones that regulate us, they're the ones that regulate Fannie and Freddie, really is who they regulate. They come out with new loan limits. And so basically anything underneath the loan limit, it's going to be government sponsored and insured. And so you're going to be able to get better terms and more preferable qualifications. And so the new loan limit for 2023, it really depends on your county. There are some higher cost counties. It is state to state, never mind county to county. But in Austin, Travis County, it's 726,200, which is a pretty big increase from the 647,200 that it was last year. And so when somebody's financing in the luxury category, a lot of the time they're going to hear, oh, you're going to need a jumbo loan. And so what we're talking about is basically what is that threshold where you go from a standard conforming conventional loan to a conventional loan that is deemed to be a non-qualified mortgage because it's over that loan limit. And so whenever somebody's below the loan limit, they do have more options. And the temporary buy down is a huge option that a lot of people are taking advantage of. I think it's a great option for a lot of people, not for everybody, right? Like any option. But yeah, I mean, I think that's part of what we're seeing, Jennifer, with more of the $1 million plus inventory coming to market and staying on market. we saw that luxury category. We continue to see that being a hyperactive and relatively more competitive arena than the 5 to 700. Now we're seeing that shift, right? So it's interesting to see that in live looking back fashion. But so I don't know your exact question, but yeah, that's the new loan limit. And really, it's very different when somebody is financing beneath it versus above it.
Yeah. So that was an uptick up from, what was it?
647, 200. I don't know the exact math on the increase of it, but
And the new one is how much?
726, 200. And so for, I guess, relative terms and just for anecdotal purposes, when I got licensed in 2014, it was 417,000.
For 2023, there is a $79,000 increase in the amount that can be considered for a conventional loan.
Yep, exactly. And so with the minimum downs, I ran the numbers on that earlier, but I don't remember them now. But I think it's like 750, a little bit over 750 that somebody can do with 5% down if they're not a first-time home buyer. So it definitely allows more options. Anytime you're providing consumers with better options, that means good things for us on the real estate side and for the consumer as well. So it's all good news around that.
Yeah. And so the last thing for us to talk about today before we wrap it up, Mark, is on everything old is new again, is new home construction. And coming out of 2022, we saw builders really working hard to get inventory off their books, which is every year without question. And this year was no exception. However, what was exceptional was the type of structure that they were offering realtors, as well as the structure that they were offering buyers in order to move the product and get a contract written by the end of the year. And what a huge shift on, I've said it before, but I think, in some ways the mighty have fallen. That said, they do pass as much along to the consumer as they can, and they have those margins. And in a world where everything old is new again, I believe there's going to be a continuation of new build incentives for people to make a move to new properties that have never been lived in before.
That is the trend from years in the past. From here on out, that is what is going on in Texas, right? Like we actually have land and we have demand. And so we're going to keep building. At the same time, nothing is cheaper or as it was 10 years ago or 20 years ago, right? And so a lot of what was happening at the end of 2022 is both locking in those profits for that fiscal year, but then also locking in those losses, right? Like we don't know how much did it actually cost these builders. That I had buyers that their 8 to 12 month build turned into an 18 to 19 month build, right? Like there's a lot of holding costs within that. And so it's interesting to see, like you said, it's how the mighty have fallen. But at the same time, we always talk about this with our buyers that are looking at new construction. When you're buying new construction, you do not want this to be a short-term investment that you're looking at, because you never know how long you're going to be in it. But at the same time, whether or not you're going to be competing with additional new construction in 3 years or 5 years by really understanding the development in that community. And so whenever somebody's buying new construction, from historically, I guess anecdotally, but historically, it's not your first home. And it's really more often than not your dream home. And so that tends to be house 4, 5, 6, 7. And so it's definitely not for everybody, but I certainly do understand as a millennial the attraction to something that is brand new as opposed to lived in. So that it is what it is.
I never thought of it quite that way. However, how I counsel my buyers when they are looking at new construction is twofold, especially when they're looking at like some of the higher end, like a Highland or a Perry, or some of the other builders that are building what could be considered not only luxury, but often what they do is they have so many choices when they go into the design center that these homes really do become one-offs. in terms of what they are. So when you're looking in the luxury market, I am always counseling my clients to understand what the trends are, what is long standing in terms of what they're doing, that this very much is their own home and it needs to feel like them. And when they are looking at new home construction, I always consider where we are in the development. What year are we in the development so that they understand? And I also educate them on the fact, to your point, that you're really looking at a 3 to 5 year minimum stay in those homes, because ultimately, as new homes are built over and over and over, we want to see that not only is your value going to stay the same as it relates to the newness in that market and in that neighborhood, you're also going to be paying down your note at a point where you've got enough that you've been paying down on principal and you're starting to see that the economics of it really play out for you. So new home construction, honestly, I want builders in new home construction to be building as quickly as they can at the highest rate of efficacy possible, so that we have great houses for people to move into and that our economy continues to grow as more and more people are moving to Austin. I want to
You're
see them do well. I really do. I want
you're
to see
absolutely
everybody
right.
win.
So we've talked about it, right? We don't have enough shelter to meet the current needs. But while we need to maximize efficiency in getting it out there, we need to make sure that we're not putting out garbage product, right? On average, I think it's about 6,000 homes a year get retired, meaning like they are just beyond repair. So
Yep.
those come out of inventory every single year. So we need all of the new construction to refill that void. But at the same time, we need to limit the amount of houses that are going to deteriorate in 20 years. We want them to sustain and go 80 plus years if they're well maintained.
Yeah, and that starts a whole other conversation on the type of structures that are being built, whether you're looking at mobile homes, whether you're looking at 3D printed houses. But I mean, there's so many different types of construction now that when you think about quality and you're considering moving and living in Austin, what you can buy and who you can buy with and what the various types of builders produce is really important. It's not just about the sticker price. There are so many other aspects that when I'm working with people and their budget, a lot of the consideration is, what's that final number? What's the type of neighborhood they want to be in? Can we get them in the school district that they want to be in? And sustainably speaking, is that neighborhood, based on everything we know, going to maintain its value? And what we're seeing in and around, like around Austin, on the outskirts of the Leanders and the Liberty Hills, et cetera, of the world, that the school systems are growing, the infrastructure for the hospitals, the fire, the police, the retail, the technology companies, everything is exploding right now, which is what is causing not only sustainability but growth trajectory that's phenomenal. So Austin has a lot going for it right now. We have some great builders.
You do. And I think that what you just brushed upon, I mean, that is one of the biggest opportunities that I see in investing in Texas, which is that future San Antonio to Austin Metroplex and everything in between. That is going to be, bar none, the best investment in Texas that I can see.
Yeah, and we can talk about that, more of that next week, which I look forward to. So with that said, Mark, welcome back. Happy 2023.
Onward and upward, Jennifer. Onward and upward.
Onward and upward. I'm really excited to be here with you and some of the things that we've got on tap that are going to be coming out and the people that we're going to be bringing on with us. So good things coming wherever you are, whatever you're up to. I hope your 2023 is off to an incredible start. And no matter what, at the end of the day, when it comes time to making your next best move, it's personal. We know it's personal. And I, for one, cannot wait to help the people that I'm going to get to help with this year and the people that I'm turning you on to and vice versa. It's going to be a great year.
It is. We're going to serve a lot of people. We're going to help a lot of people. And I think we're going to see at the end of the day, the movers and shakers, the communicators, they're going to be the ones that thrive instead of just try to survive.
All right. Well, with that said, my name is Jennifer Goodman.
Mark Karetskiy, Movement Mortgage.
All right.
Looking forward to
Thanks.
seeing you next week.
Yeah. Looking forward to talking to you next week. Take care.